So as a homeowner, we know about our rights, our bundle rights, what we can and can't do, what we can do with the land, what we can do with our yard, what we can and can't do in regards to our neighbors and what the neighbors can't do to us. But one thing we haven't talked about, besides water rights, is what about air rights? What about that? What's going on, ladies and gents in Cyberland? Coming back to you with another educational video of the world of real estate. And this time we are going to delve into air rights. So what exactly are air rights and how far do we go with this? Well, air rights has to deal with you have a property and there's a certain amount above the roof of your house that you have access to the air in that area. And you're like, well, what do you mean the air? It's like, well, what it means is that you can go above. So let's say you have a single story home and you want to make it a 2-story. You can do that. Or you say, well, what about a 3-story? You can do that. What about a 4-story? You can do that. What about a 10-story? Whoa. Hold up. And just so you know, even with a 2 or 3-story, you have to have a permit to say you can do that. You have a certain amount of right above your house to that location, that air per se, but within reason. Okay, so what that means is that, let's say you make it a 2-story, get your permits and stuff, you're good to go, no problem. However, let's say you wanted to do that and you get your permits, you start the process, but got a problem. You have a neighbor right behind you that gets a certain amount of sun comes from that angle of the front of your house. It comes so let's, as I'm looking at you, this is my face is the front of the house, my head is the back of the house, and behind my back this chair, there's a house behind me, and the sun every day, no matter what time of the year it is, it always comes, it rises, it sets this way and comes down this way. Sun sets coming down the front of my house. Well, when you build that 2-story, you have officially blocked the sun going down. Now you can say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal about it is that neighbor behind you likes the sunset. They've had a sunset a certain way that they enjoy watching every couple of days. They like to sit out on their backyard and watch the sunset from their house. And you now officially are blocking that. Well, that's too bad. Yeah, I know that's too bad, but you can't do that. Because now that was the owners can say, well, that was one of the things that we loved about when we bought this house back in whoever knows when. We had a sunset that we could see in our backyard, and now you're blocking that. And they can block you from building, making your house a 2-story. And people can say, well, that's not fair. It's like, I understand your grievances, but at the same time, you wanting to do things on your property, again, as a homeowner, you can do things to your house as long as you don't infringe on your neighbors. So the air rights, it's the same thing. Now, with the government, now let's get the government involved. Let's say you want to be able to talk to other people across the country in form of radio communication. Well, unfortunately, there have been laws passed that limit that too. You cannot just put a giant tower on your roof to try to talk with other people. There is laws that now state that it has to be within reason. And if you are affecting the radio waves of other networks, you can't do that. But at the same time, I feel, even though this personally never affected me, I always felt like this law was bullshit. I always did. And I'm not trying to get this into go deviate, but I really do feel like when that law got implemented, I think back in the 2000s when the network started to change, where they started to become more digital, they started making to where people couldn't have towers on their homes anymore. They had to be taken down. And I feel that was some BS. I don't feel that was fair. But of course, you know, big tech, right? So anyway, you can't do that either. And the same thing could be said for the airspace if you're affecting your neighbors, for example. Here's a situation that did occur. When I lived in Signal Hill, I used to go to my alley to take out my trash, there was 3 properties that had besides my property, our condo, they had a beautiful view of Long Beach from their property, their balcony. And all of a sudden, what year was it? I think I was in my junior or senior year of high school. I noticed in the back that there happened to be these long 3-legged sticks that were going really high. And I remember I asked my mom about, Mom, what are those? And she said, oh, they're looking at trying to build property right there. And I just said, oh, come on. Because I personally like nature. And a gripe at Signal Hill, I get it, but I don't like what it's become. When I grew up there, it was a lot more openness, and I loved it. Anyway, the city was deciding to put some properties right there. And I said, so Mom, they're going to do that? She's like, oh, they're going to try. And I said, what do you mean they're going to try? She says, it's not going to happen. I said, what do you mean it's not going to happen? Can't they just do it? She's like, if they bought the land, she's like, no. Because I guarantee you, they're going to block those owners, your friend, because I had a friend who lived there and I knew his dad. He said, your friend's dad, that whole condo complex, because they were all condos, they're going to be able to see the city. And I said, well, why? He's like, because they're going to block their view. If they try to build anything that blocks their view, you can't do it. And I was like, and I think that was one of my first introductions into property, what you can do with it at that time. And lo and behold, the properties didn't get built. And that was when I was in high school, because that's exactly what happened. The Homeowners Association went to the city and said, you cannot build this because you're going to, our property, all our condos, have a view from our balcony, and it's going to bring down the value of our home and affect their air rights, per se. And what ended up happening is years later, they finally were able to build, but the homes were not as high. They were completely lower, to where those condos were never affected by their view. They never lost their view at all. So the reason being is, what I'm saying is, even if you want to make a 2-story home or a 3-story home, and here's the other thing. With even those things you're doing, you can't affect power lines either. If you're trying to build and it's going to disrupt power lines, can't do it. Now, if the power lines can be deviated or moved to a degree, you can kind of do it. But if it's going to cause major problems for all the neighbors with the power lines, you can't do it. You cannot build. And it sucks, because what if you have, all you can do is build on your property, and now you can't build on your property? What do, you know? Which, again, these things, like if you inherit property, you don't know, but I say this again, whenever you're purchasing property, keep those things in mind. Watch my videos when I'm telling you guys these things. Keep those things in mind, because you could be like, well, I'm not looking to build. You're not looking to build right now. 10 years from now, you just want to add some more stuff to your property. Can you do that? Can those things be done? It's better to at least know these things now, so that if you ever decide to, you can do it. Whereas you didn't think it was necessary to know that, and 10 years later, you're not looking to sell, but you want to upgrade your property, and all you can upgrade is what you have right in front of you. You can't do any remodels like that, or let's say you have enough land to make another unit on your property. And you can't. Why? Because your unit, if you build it the way you want to, it's going to affect the neighbors around you. It'll affect what they've been accustomed to. And now you're pissed off and mad, but it's like, hey, did you do that research when you were looking at trying to purchase the property? When somebody told you that, such as a realtor like me, did you listen? Well, I didn't think it was necessary. Well, yeah, you didn't think it was necessary, and now you can't do what you want to do. The more education you have with going into purchasing a property, even if it's little things like what I'm saying right now, like what I'm talking about, the better it is for you in the long run. Because you still may not even do what I'm talking about. But wouldn't you like to make sure you know that you can or can't do those things? Because what if you can't do these things you would like to do? Should you even bother purchasing this property? Because some people who don't even want to do these things, and they never want to, cool. But wouldn't you rather have the education knowing that if I ever want to build on this, I'm never going to be able to? Is this a right investment for me? Is this going to be an issue for me selling the property too if people realize they can't do these things either? Because information's there, it's always there. These are all these things you want to consider. So with that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one.